Part 5. The Reconciliation, Regathering, the final gathering of everything God has preserved. Chapter 13. The Reconciliation, Regathering. For centuries, men have searched for Israel. Theologians have debated where the northern tribes went. Historians have traced migration patterns. Geneticists have mapped population movements. In every case, the search has produced more questions than answers. Not because the evidence is absent, but because the searchers have been looking in the wrong direction. The greater mystery is not where Israel was scattered. The greater mystery is why. The God who scattered his people was also the God who promised to gather them again. Dispersion was never the end of the story. Reconciliation was. And the reconciliation regathering is not merely the final chapter of Israel's national narrative. It is the consummation of the entire redemptive plan, the moment when everything that was separated is brought together, everything that was broken is made whole, everything that was hidden is revealed. Many have approached Israel's restoration as a competition. One group claims exclusive inheritance, another claims exclusive identity, and each looking at the other sees a rival rather than a brother. The Hebrew Roots movement says the northern tribes were absorbed into Gentile nations and no longer exist as a distinct people. The Black Hebrew movement says the African diaspora are the only true Israelites. The Zionist movement says the modern state of Israel represents the fulfillment of all regathering prophecy. Each of these positions captures a thread of truth, and each taken exclusively misses the larger weaving. The Hebrew Roots movement is right that the law has ongoing relevance for those grafted into the covenant, but wrong to dismiss the biological trail of the northern tribes that history and genetics have preserved. The Black Hebrew movement is right that the African diaspora carries covenantal identity, but wrong to use that identity to exclude others from the Father's table. The Zionist movement is right that the land covenant is not spiritualized away, but wrong to reduce the full scope of Isaiah 11:11 to one demographic return to one piece of geography. The Father's purpose was never to create rivalry among his children. The Father's purpose was to reveal his wisdom through reconciliation, and reconciliation requires both parties, not one house claiming the inheritance over the other, but both houses recognizing each other, making room for each other, extending to each other the grace that was extended to both in Christ. The convergence point, the place where the sovereign sifting of Amos 9:9 deposited the most concentrated representation of the covenant family from every direction, is America. Ephraim arrived through the British Isles, the Scottish Covenanters, the Irish dispossessed, the Celtic peoples whose migration trail stretched from Assyria through Scythia through the highlands to the Atlantic. Judah arrived through the slave ships, the peoples of the Judah coast, transported in iron to a land their fathers had never known, fulfilling Deuteronomy 28:68 with devastating precision. 2 sticks, different ships, same shore, same land, same soil, and the same God watching over both journeys, sifting without losing, scattering without forgetting, depositing both families in the same territory, and waiting for the moment of recognition. America is where the shepherd began to gather. It is the crucible, the place of preparation, the land of the isles afar off, where both houses were deposited, waiting, most of them without knowing it, for the moment of recognition. That moment has not fully come, but it is coming. The convergence is already underway. The recognition has begun in scattered places, in individual hearts, in communities where Ephraim looks at Judah and says, "I know who you are," and Judah looks at Ephraim and says, "I know who you are." The goal was never merely to bring people back to a land. The goal was to bring people back to a father. The Father is not gathering competing tribes. He is gathering reconciled children. The reconciliation regathering is the undoing of Babel, the healing of the fracture of 930 BC, the restoration of the family that has been separated for nearly 3,000 years. But it is more than that. The reconciliation regathering is the undoing of everything the enemy did to separate humanity from its God and from one another. Every wall of hostility broken down in Christ, every dividing line between Jew and Gentile, slave and free, male and female, dissolved not by erasing identity, but by transcending it in the one identity that encompasses all, hidden in Christ Jesus. The root remains Christ, the trunk remains God's covenant faithfulness, the branches extend throughout the nations, The fruit is reconciliation. The Father scattered. The Father preserved. The Father gathered. The Father reconciled. This is the reconciliation, regathering. This is OneFold. This is one shepherd. The prophetic framework of this book is not an academic exercise. It is a summons. To those who carry the heritage of the African diaspora, your suffering was not random. It was covenantal. Deuteronomy 28 was written about you. Amos 9:9 was written about you. Isaiah 11:11 was written about you. Not one grain fell to the earth. The preservation is total. But the beginning of your restoration is not the assertion of your identity. It is the humility of your servant-heartedness. The dispensation of glorification belongs to Judah, but only to a Judah that has learned, through the school of suffering, to reign like Jesus, gently, justly, with a heart that has been broken of self and filled with the Spirit of God. Remember the cupbearer. The moment Judah turns back to Jesus with the full weight of her testimony, something shifts in the heavenly order. The greater Joseph begins to be revealed, not because you earned it, but because you remembered. And to those who carry the heritage of the Celtic peoples, the Scottish and Irish and Welsh, who found themselves in America through the corridors described in this book, you too were displaced. You too carried a covenantal identity that was suppressed by the systems you passed through. And when you arrived in America, you arrived wounded, and the wound was weaponized against your covenant family member. The call to Ephraim in this hour is the call of Joseph's brothers in the moment of recognition. Not guilt as the motivating force. Guilt produces performance, not transformation, but recognition. To look at the sons and daughters of Judah and say, I know what was done. I know who you are, and I am asking for the forgiveness that only God can grant, and only a reconciled heart can receive. Japheth is called to dwell in the tents of Shem. That is not a diminishment, it is an invitation. Recognize your brother, not over him, not beneath him, beside him. Two sticks becoming one. To those outside the Israelite bloodlines, the olive tree is not closed. It has never been closed. The wild branches are not merely tolerated, they are invited, grafted in, made partakers of the root and the fatness of Romans chapter 11. The kingdom requires the mind of Japheth and the creative labor of Ham, operating under the heart of Shem, all three together, all three in their God-given order, all three expressing the full character of the God who made them. Your role in the reconciliation regathering is not secondary, it is essential. The one fold that Christ declared in John 10:16 is not complete without the other sheep. And other sheep means exactly what it says, sheep from outside the Israelite fold, belonging to the same shepherd, heard and gathered by the same voice. The shepherd is not narrowing the fold, he is expanding it. And to everyone reading or watching, from every background, every lineage, every history, the recognition is not about exclusion, it is about completion. When Ephraim recognizes Judah, the picture becomes complete. When Judah recognizes Ephraim, the picture becomes complete. When every branch discovers its connection to the same root, the one fold that Christ promised begins to take the shape he always intended it to have. Two sticks, same land, 4 centuries of proximity, waiting for the hand that will hold them both. The reconciliation regathering is the fulfillment of a promise written not in ink, but in DNA. When Amos declared that not one grain would fall to the ground, he was prophesying not merely the survival of a people, but the preservation of their genetic inheritance across millennia of scattering. The grain, the visible vessel of human life, carries within it the seed, the invisible blueprint that makes a person who they are. For nearly 3,000 years, that seed has been preserved through every form of dispersion the enemy could devise. The northern tribes scattered into Scythia, their genetic inheritance passing through Celtic Europe, through the British Isles, across the Atlantic. In every generation, in every location, the seed remained encoded in the DNA of those who carried the covenant name, even when they did not know they carried it. The southern tribes scattered into Africa, their genetic inheritance preserved in populations across West Africa and the African diaspora. The Cohen modal haplotype appearing in the Lemba at rates that defy coincidence, testifying to a preservation that was genetic, molecular, written into the very code of life. And now, in this generation, the grain is being gathered. The recognition is beginning. Ephraim is beginning to see Judah. Judah is beginning to see Ephraim. And what they are recognizing is not merely a shared history or a common culture. They are recognizing each other at the level of the seed itself. The hand goes in leprous. The hand comes out restored. Not transformed, not replaced, restored. the same seed, the same genetic inheritance, the same covenantal identity, now visible, now gathered, now coming home. One grain, two dispersions, countless generations, one God who never forgot, and the harvest is coming. Chapter 13 has given us the summons. The reconciliation regathering is not a future abstraction, it is the present call. To Judah, remember Jesus. The restoration waits not on your declaration, but on your return to the one whose name you were always meant to carry. To Ephraim, recognize your brother, not with guilt, but with the clear-eyed honesty of Joseph's brothers in the moment of recognition. Beside him, two sticks becoming one. To Japheth and Ham, the olive tree is not closed. Your role is essential. The OneFold is not complete without you. And to everyone, the recognition is coming. Two sticks, same land, 4 centuries of proximity, and the hand is now going back into the bosom and will come out restored. The grain cannot be lost because the seed cannot be corrupted. Then the children of Judah and the children of Israel shall be gathered together, and appoint for themselves one head, and they shall come up out of the land, for great will be the day of Jezreel. Hosea chapter 1 verse 11. One episode remains, the conclusion. One fold, one shepherd, the capstone, where every thread of the entire book is drawn together in the final invitation. Come near, the shepherd is calling. One seed, two families, 3,000 years of waiting.